Hey, welcome to the First Class Second Place podcast. I'm your host, Jason Enrique, and with me today we have another very special guest in the house today. First and foremost, before we get to that, I want to say thank you so much to everybody that has been watching and listening to the podcast in 2023. There's been a lot of great things that has been going on, a lot of ups and downs, but mostly up for the most part. It's been a roller coaster ride, but certainly thank you everybody for doing this, and I'm really excited to have my guest here for the final season of the final episode of 2023 for First Class Second Place. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome my guest, Wyl White. How you doing, brother?
What up?
So modest. Yeah, well, first and foremost, man, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, man. This has been a while coming, especially considering that we're in your residency, pretty much.
Yeah, I also do work here, too.
Yeah. And speaking of which, ladies and gentlemen, we are live at Bravery Studios in Garfield, New Jersey. Shout out to Steve behind the glass, by the way. So,
That guy rocks.
yeah, love that guy. So, how's your day, man?
Oh, man. I woke up, and then I started breathing, and I got here, and then we started doing this.
Nice. Not a bad day so far. Not too shabby.
That's pretty cool. I like
Yeah.
breathing and stuff, looking.
Right, nice. You've been killing it out there with all these bookings and everything, but we're gonna get to that in a little bit. So let me start off. With the number one question that we ask on the show. So where does the story of Wyl White begin? Like, where were you born and raised?
Oh, man. Patterson, New Jersey.
Okay, Patterson. Born.
It's always so funny talking about like where specifically you're from, because a lot of people often have, everyone's got a different answer, but or people who do share the same answer always is a different story. So
That's true.
for me, it's Patterson, and me actually, Marv, to whom is the producer here, me and him went to the same high school, actually.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Patterson, I was born and raised in Patterson. I came out of all over, but I think I started off in North Patterson, which was like Heldon, that area,
Okay. Yeah.
which is closer and closer and closer to the ghetto.
Right.
But,
Yeah. I mean, I used to live on North 8th Street in Hawthorne, so
oh, word!
yeah. So I was very close to around that area.
That's fucking awesome, man.
Yeah. I actually missed that area because it was a lot of like that specific part of Hawthorne is where I feel like I did a lot of growing up. Because I remember I was just a little snot-nosed little shit, just not thinking that he has everything all figured out and everything, and coming from a broken home at a pretty early age, and me having this little ego that I don't know where I got it from in the first place, but it was just there, and then I learned to eat a lot of humble pie around that area. Yeah, because I got to see what it's really like to be like in the real world and so on and so forth, and I think it's made me into the person that I've become so far. But in Patterson, like where you grew up, what would you like you mentioned, everybody has a different story. So what about you? Like, what was your personal experience like growing up in that side of Patterson?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's the same, but definitely, I didn't have so much an ego. I think I was a little bit more headstrong than I was paying attention to. But what I learned was that just because you're in a certain area doesn't mean that you have to leave the area, the same person. Because, yeah, man, I grew up in the ghetto. I was just kind of like, I remember once before, not that it's anything to smile about, but I'm alive. So, but my parents near the North 8th, right?
Yeah.
So at Hawthorne, and you come down a little further out, it's Patterson. And Patterson's it's like a valley. It comes in, and as you further you get in, the more inner city it gets. But like I grew up in that area where it was kind of like very, I wouldn't say aggressive, but it was definitely not specifically, the upper class, because like the further you got up into Heldon, it became more and more, prominent people, rich, and then once you got into Wayne, it's just not about rich people.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like
by William Patterson University and such. Yeah.
It's people who live out in the woods and don't need to get to the store at any time specifically. But
it's kind of like an allegory for what like class is around that area. It's like you start from the bottom and then you go all the way to the top, and it's the upper echelon.
Whole thing, man. It's crazy. The just the class system works specifically in certain areas. But I learned specifically that, me in general, I think I was one of the only people who was like really, really, really into music back then, and like singing in general. So So it wasn't specifically the one thing that most people were focusing on. That back then, it was more like sports. The area was good with the schools were very big into sports. Kennedy was one of them, and they had our John F. Kennedy in Patterson was big sports school, and then Eastside was the other one that was like near.
Yeah. So
Steve's
alma mater.
Steve, which is a great guy too. He's also here.
He's the best.
Francesca. But yeah, man, just everybody comes from that different area and different stories, different places. And for me, the people who were there, we all turned out different, but a lot of it ended up being me that was more like a nerdy guy. I was nerdy into comic books and shit like that. So I didn't really specifically always have a group of friends that were there to hang out with. But when I did find a group of friends, it was, we became a little different than the area. It wasn't specifically that people who were focused on sports were also focused on like fucking Star Trek and stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, I had Hugo on my show. Shout out to Hugo from the Hugo Boy podcast. So he actually discussed on the show before how that was a little bit of his upbringing as well, because, when he grew up, he grew up loving like movies and comic books and heroes and wrestling and a whole bunch of other stuff. And around my era, I guess me and him around the same age, if you were into that kind of stuff, you were like deemed as like a nerd and you get picked on and so on and so forth, or people just don't fuck with you because they think that shit is not cool. And it's funny because now we live in a time now where it's cool to love that stuff. You could live.
It's mainstream.
It's so mainstream, and you have a lot of kids that love anime now, especially kids in the inner city, when that wasn't the case before. So you growing up at that time when you were into like all this other stuff that everybody else wasn't into, were you subject to a little bit of bullying or picked on? Or
I was bullied like every other day when I was in both grammar school and middle school. But I kind of, besides being in like mentor programs, I also was very into martial arts, and I went to a few schools and I learned from a few different people that were like private class stuff, and so I kind of had no other choice but to defend myself. But but yeah, humble pie, just eating tons of humble pie, just not thinking that everything is cool because of the fact that like if I just stick to myself, no one's gonna bother me. If I just read and draw these things by myself, no one's gonna bother me. Not the case.
Not the case.
Like, hey,
listen,
man.
I am a person who was bullied plenty few when I was younger. I try to do that whole thing that our parents try to teach us about, like, just ignore them, don't pay attention to them, this, that. It doesn't work.
No,
if anything, it actually entices them to even do it more. So
are you not paying attention to me while I'm bothering you right now? I'm gonna have to like
I need to hit you over the head with a hammer in order to get your attention,
No pay attention. Violence.
Yeah, that's not really funny though, but thank you for understanding my dark humor.
And if you're being bullied, make sure you find a good way to confront and or to approach a better situation. But
it's simply not just I'll just go to the principal's office and complain.
Yep, you can do that, and guess what? The principal will get them, in more of a situation than you would by trying to fight back.
Right. They'll have a stern talk with them.
Stern talk, probably. Yeah, the world is a weird place. So I got bullied for that stuff back then, watching, reading, drawing Marvel and all that jazz. And nowadays, it's like the mainstream thing. You've not seen that Marvel movie? Now you're getting beat up because you didn't see the Marvel movie.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And it's funny now because a lot of people, because wrestling has always been big, but it seems like it's been bigger now more than ever. Like, because I remember there was a time where it had its audience, but to me at least, it seems like the audience has gotten bigger now because everybody's more open minded and they're into stuff that people of our generation were used to back then. Like now they're into comic books, now they're into superheroes, now they're into anime, now they're into wrestling as well. And I see that it's to me at least it feels like it's bigger than it's ever been. So now when I know a bunch of friends, especially my age range or even family members, that they'll mention something as far as wrestling is concerned, and I don't know anything about it because the last time I stopped watching wrestling, because I used to be into it when I was a kid, but I stopped watching it when Hulk Hogan decided to join NWO, and for some reason I felt heartbroken that he did that, and I never wanted to watch wrestling again. So now people, when they ask me if I know anything about wrestling and I say no, they're shocked, like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, what kind of rock have you been living under? So it's almost like I have to relearn this shit all over again. I don't know.
Damn it. No, I feel
If
you.
only we knew. If only we
Yeah.
knew. Now, obviously, I know you as one of my contemporaries and colleagues here at Bravery, but one of your many talents, and you seem to really thrive on this, is music. Now, do you come at all from a musically inclined family?
No, actually, well, singers, yeah, for
Okay.
sure. Everybody loves singing in my family, and if I'm not mistaken, one of my uncles is related to Gladys Knight, but I
Oh
think
wow.
it's very here touch and go, one of those things. Where like, yeah, your family member, but
Oh yeah. My cousin is Angie Martinez. No big deal.
but in terms of us like being all musically inclined, specifically, no, not really. I'm kind of the only one that plays guitar out of my siblings. There's like 8 of us all together, and
Oh wow.
yeah, it's a big
Okay.
family. But and I love each and every one of them. And I suppose it's just that the new generation is now like one of my younger brothers plays piano. And
Nice.
he's learning, and he's a little physically dilapidated, so he can't do specific
Oh.
things. But one of the things he does do, and one of the things he loves doing is playing piano and learning instruments. So I think maybe as we go further into our family line, that maybe there may be, but for the most part, it was just me. And then now I'm trying to teach them to play guitar and learn how to do music because they really enjoy it. And it's good to like see how that changes in your family line. Like, oh, specifically, who was it that started that at the beginning? I
Right.
don't know. It could have been my great grandfather. Maybe he was a fan of guitar, but for the most part, right now, currently, it's just me.
Okay. Guitar was the first instrument that you learned to play?
Yes.
What was it about the guitar specifically that drew to you as opposed to any other instrument?
Well, I suppose like when first starting, and you're just getting to learn about music, or any person is growing up from like the early 50s to now, generally guitar is one of those things that are prominent. You see it's like, what is that? Oh, I know what that is. And it's one of those like household name instruments along with the piano. So it's kind of one of the other, and the guitar ended up being the one that stuck out the most to me. It was like, wow, this is really cool. I can do like those things that I see the glam bands do, where they're all cool about their guitar. And
who are some of your musical influences? Like early on, like was there anybody specifically that drew you to wanted to, like, you kind of admired or you wanted to emulate them while playing guitar?
Definitely Prince.
Okay,
So that guy,
that's a
I was
good
like,
one.
wow, that's a cool guy. This guy's he's got all this style and grace, and he plays guitar.
Yeah,
And aside
straight from Lake Minnetonka.
Jimi Hendrix for sure.
Mm,
BB King.
nice.
A lot of people who I saw were like doing guitar stuff that was unique and not specifically shredding, so to speak, which is nice. But like it does, I feel like sometimes it misses the keynotes, which sound sweeter when they're like bended, or it like can give a little bit more air to being its own specific note, each one that you play.
Was there ever a it moment in your life where you realized for sure, without a doubt, that this guitar is meant, the skill of playing guitar is meant to be you, a part of you, of Wyl White?
Hmm. I think I was listening to this English band from from England, and they
It's usually where they come from.
yeah, I think so. But no, I was listening to their song. It's a band called Ruben, and I was listening to their song "Good Luck," and it's like this sad song. It's like
Oh wow.
a few little guitar notes here and there, and for everyone else, probably not that hard, but for me, I was like, wow, this sounds super hard and complex. Let me learn how to play it. And I was like, wow, I like playing guitar. And then I struck a chord. I was like, whoa, what is that? This amalgamation of different notes and sounds. And for me, I can sometimes feel or see what those colors look like when it's like the music is just there.
Yeah.
It feels good to like hear that, and then for guitar, it's like really close to your heart. So for me, there's a sensation that kind of like reflects back and forth. It's like the beating of my heart can feel the vibrations of the music, and that makes my heart calm down.
Wow.
So it's like, it's nice to like hear
that. One of the cool things about music that I've never learned how to learn it. I never learned how to play an instrument. I wish I had, especially early on at an early age. I wish I would have learned how to play either the piano or the drums or even the saxophone. Because I think the saxophone is the sexiest instrument out there. That's just me personally. But yeah, but guitar sounds just like really complex to me. But the point that I'm getting at really here is that there's people out there that they're able to read music like yourself, and then there's people that could just listen to music phonetically and then just create something out of thin air from it. I mean, there's just something about learning it from, like, you have really having an ear for music and being able to create something off of just that. It's really oddly fascinating to me because it's not something that I don't understand very well, and it's almost kind of like a superpower, for lack of a better term, that there's people out there that are able to put that together just off of listening to a sound, or just how to compile music together as a whole is one of the great wonders of the world, according to me. I don't know how people can do it, and I'm just always amazed at it personally.
Well, I mean, think about it. It's the same thing that you're doing here. It's a conversation between tones and exchanges of auditory display. Like when you ask a question and you have all your guests come up here and they speak back and forth to you, you're jamming with them because you're like,
that is true. Yeah.
You're playing, and you're not expecting, but you have a general idea of the next line or conversational topic that they'll have because you've guided them into that. The same thing goes for music, where you play a note and then there's a drummer who then plays that percussion, and then from that percussion, that sax player then hears the way and the time that he's supposed to then like interject that sound. And that's why when you hear people like take a solo or something like that, they take the time to like take those 8 bars, and that's the conversation there. That's them having their moment in the conversation, aside from everybody talking at the same time, to like do the same thing. But I suppose the other parts are a little hard, knowing which notes to play specifically and knowing when to play it and how to match that key is hard. I suppose. There are people who, a lot of the times that I've noticed, a lot of the classical trained musicians don't like to jam because they read their conversation on a paper as opposed to just like making it up as they go along. And those who like to jam don't like to read music because then they have to structure themselves to a very specific box.
You know what that kind of reminds me of? Because I used to do music back in the day. I used to be a rapper. And it's almost like, I'm not going to spit anything here. That day's long gone for me. But
badass.
Excuse me. But to me, that sounds like, back then, or even I guess still to this day now, where there's 2 different kind of MCs. There's people that like to freestyle and jam, and then there's ones that only like to write and, have everything structurally in a chorus and a hook and so on and so forth. They can't spit off the top of the dome. They actually have to sit down and actually think about something and write it down. I belong in the latter category as far as that's concerned. But that's the analogy that the thing you read there is kind of like the analogy that I think of when it comes to like hip hop and music in general. That's the way that I look at it.
Oh yeah, it's the same thing with rapping too, because when you sample a song, you have to call back to that like beat that's there, that 4/4 tempo, and you keep that cadence lyric. You can put any type of like, how you want to speak and wave it, but like the general sense is that you're responding specifically to the track that you put up, or when you're in a freestyle battle and you're fucking going back and forth, you gotta like pay attention, or you don't. Some people are like really badass about it and they can go off the top of their head and like not have a lick miss. I applaud. It's hard as fuck. One, because you have to have like the lung capacity to keep speaking like that. It's hard. And then you gotta have the cadence and knowing and the intelligence. Your brain has to be able to read specific things off of that person and or line, and just be able to spit that out with poetry along with rhymes. It's
awesome. A lot that goes into it. It's a lot to go to it.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is a beautiful thing. It's unfortunately an art that I was never able to master. Yeah, but it was writing for me, like me actually sitting down and actually using my brain and brainstorming and try to figure out how to put everything structurally sound. That was more my thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But as far as like other musical instruments, is there any instrument out there that you have never learned to play that you would absolutely love or has your interest or you're curious about learning how to play?
For sure, sax, like you said.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, the woodwind brass instruments just never. I could never understand what it meant to play them. Like for guitar, it's like strings, and you play and put your fingers in certain places. And it's the same thing for, I'm assuming, woodwind and brass, but you also gotta like breathe. There's no
You gotta
choice.
have the lung control for sure.
There's no choice in like saying, "Oh, I'm not gonna use my lungs today for that." No, you have to.
Yeah.
And that part kind of always confused me, but damn sure for sax, because it would be really cool. Like,
Yeah, and it's I think for me personally, it goes back to when my father, God rest his soul, he used to own a store. And he owned it for like 20 years. It was kind of like one of those GNC vitamin shop places, but it was like a mom and pop one. He had it for about 20 years. And I just remember being there a lot, especially when my parents had already split up and when we were spending time with my dad. We would be spending time in that store a lot, and also learning the value of work and the value of a dollar, and learning the basic market skills that you need at a very early age, whether when you start working and start making a living. And I remember the only music that he would allow was his radio station. It was called CD 101.9, where it was just nothing but smooth jazz. And so there was a lot of Kenny G and a lot of other stuff there. So every time I think about that store, I think of the soundtrack as that type of music. And I think that's very early on. Because I remember I didn't hate the music at all. I just wanted to. As a kid, I just wanted to hear variety, but I didn't have any problem with it at all. I actually liked some of it, especially some of the covers of popular songs that are out there. But every time I think of wanting to learn to play an instrument, I think about that time when I was younger in my dad's store, and he would just play nothing but CD 101.9, and it was just nothing but smooth jazz. And I feel like if I would have ever learned how to play an instrument like the saxophone, it would go back to me having an affinity for that time as a kid, where that played a big part of my life musically.
It's the nostalgia, the therapeutic and like cathartic abilities that music has that a lot of people like. It's sought after. I think it has such a therapeutic feel to it that it often gets written off as simply a divisive form of audio that you can simply use to for whatever it might be. But I think deep down it also has such a deep full therapeutic feel that there's nothing else that kind of compares. Like they asked the question, what if you had to take an album with you and listen to it on an abandoned island for the rest of your life, what would it be? And like what is the question there is so deep. Like, what would you want to hear for the rest of your time on this planet, let alone being secluded on an island alone? There's so many different things that go into that. Yeah.
That would be so hard for me because listen, I used to be this heavy nonstop rapping kid. Like all I wanted to do was just hear hip hop and nothing else. And it didn't matter what kind. It could have been crunk, it could have been boom bap, it could have been underground, it could have been backpack, whatever. It just had to be. Man. It just had to be rap, nothing else. No R&B, no rock, no jazz, no nothing else. But now as I've gotten older, my playlist on any streaming service that I listen to is so eclectic. Like I've actually had those moments where I play nothing but rap records and I can't do it anymore. Like now I got to hear a little bit of Red Hot Chili Peppers. Sometimes I got to hear a little bit of Music Soul Child. I got to hear a little bit of Deadmau5 or whatever the case may be. Just all different kinds of genres and different kinds of eclectic tastes. And that I can't. So that would be really hard for me if I could only listen to one single genre for the rest of my life on a deserted island. Oh my God, I wouldn't be able to answer that. You might as well, I don't know.
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
It's like, because you gotta like hear those lyrics, listen to that music over and over and again. Yeah. See that same 4/4 beat if it happens to be a 4/4.
Right. Because let me tell you something. Things. Yeah. Because let me tell you something. When I have different genres for different walks of life for me. Like, for instance, if I go to the gym and I'm getting a workout in, for some reason I can't listen to rap. I need to hear something that's going to get my blood pumping and get me energized, and it has to have no lyrics. So I end up listening to a lot of EDM records or a lot of like high tempo, whatever the case may be, but it's just no lyrics involved. And for some reason that gets me going. I actually read somewhere, and I want to try out this theory because I think it might help out. Video game soundtracks. Video game soundtracks would while working out would actually help because the music is kind of helping you feel like you have to achieve a goal like you do in a video game. Therefore, you're doing it in real life. So one of the things I want to test out is one of my favorite video game soundtracks ever is Streets of Rage 2. And I love Streets of Rage 2. I just remember playing that as a kid, and not only did I thought it was a kick-ass game, but I love the music. And if I find the music on YouTube or wherever, and I start working out, like I start doing cardio, who knows? Maybe I'll actually get the best workout of my life.
Be done with your life, just fucking stacked. I don't have to work out anymore. All I gotta do is listen to Streets of Rage too.
Yeah. and it's so fittingly appropriate with Streets of Rage, the name of it. And besides, I know that Steve was digging that because he just threw his arms in the air with that one.
Steve's got the good games under his belt.
What's that, Steve? Oh, you were just listening to it on the way here. That's great. I love that. What did you find it on YouTube or something? Oh, Apple Music. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm going to try that out. I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to try that out. Yeah. Yo, that's so funny, man. I love how we're simpatico very, very often. But so yeah, all of that is good as far as like the music is concerned. But there's also, I got to be honest with you, there's also another reason why I wanted to have you on the show, not just because of your musical talents and not because some of the conversations that you and I have had off camera, and they've been really, really good. And I appreciate a human being like you. But I remember, thank you, man. I remember, so we follow each other on Threads and a whole bunch of other social media platforms. And I remember typing up something that I have here right now. I said, to anyone out there who right now is going through the midst of something really rough and you're just trying to make it from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed and every day just feels like an eternity, just keep pushing forward, just survive and advance and surround yourself with people that are rooting for you, not against you. And then you replied back, thank you, you have great words. I replied back, you're welcome. It's because of great people like you. And then you go, I have some work to do, but happy you could shine your brightest. Now, at that last one, I kind of felt, I could be reading too much into this, but it kind of made me feel like you were possibly going through something, or you probably are going through your own struggles or whatever the case may be. And I'm always open to having these kind of conversations because I know what it's like to be in around a room full of people and not having anybody to listen to what you're hearing. And I don't know, just like I said, I could be reading into this too much, but in that moment when I read that, I kind of felt like Wyl White was trying to extend a hand out there for somebody to listen to what he has to say, whatever is based on his mind. So I guess if you don't mind, I just wanted to touch on that, especially due to the fact that I've made it very clear on the show and all the other platforms that I'm a very big mental health advocate. And one of the things that I also know about, because I've been subject to this as well, is you have some of the happiest people in the world out there, that they're all smiles and they're all good, great vibes and so on and so forth. But you never know what somebody is going through internally. And I guess the first thing that I want to ask is, are you really okay, bro?
Good question. I guess there's no really ever just being okay because there's so many things that happen in life that you don't have the time to prepare for. So there's not everything you can be sure of will be there's no moment that you can be absolutely sure of everything that's going to happen in general. So yes and no, I am. But then at the same time, there's so many things that I'm going through that I'm trying to achieve peace and because we can all do things to make other people happy, and apparently that you can do too much to make other people happy and not care enough about yourself. So I think I'm trying to learn that a little bit more, is how to, I guess, have better care for self. And that goes with therapy, to which I support everyone.
Same here.
Therapy is a very helpful tool to be able to get the opportunity to speak about the things you need to speak about, and to do it with those to whom are professional and or will listen to where there is no judgment inclined. So I'm thankful for you being courteous one to ask me about my own personal, but also to give me the space to talk about it.
Absolutely.
That would be one big one, would be to to note that even if you feel prideful and thinking that you know what you're going through, it's always good to know that there's someone there to whom will listen to you or to give you the opportunity to share how it is you feel. And yeah, no, I am also good, but I am also bad. There's a piece on trying to figure out where your mental health is, and there's also balance of understanding how to be able to share that with the world. And both a dichotomy of both sides being presented in life at the moment for myself personally. So the one thing that has gotten me through is learning that there are people much like yourself and much like the people who are here at the studio, and also just general seeing how the world comes together for certain things that we need to find peace and unity in. And that's been kind of helping me get past. The rest is a battle of learning, one's self-worth, and then also one's self-attainment. That idea of being able to get somewhere where you need to be, but also to not allow for yourself to berate or to confront yourself in a negative light, because it's always good to have both, to know the good things and to know the bad things. And when the bad things or the good things are being perceived differently by those to whom are around you, and then what they are being perceived to as yourself as well. Because sometimes you can be really hard on yourself, not realize that you're doing it. And sometimes you can let other people be really hard on you and not let that also have an effect on you. So thank you for asking. I am okay.
Okay.
And I am, for the moment and also currently, safe. So that is important to me. And then on that, I'd like to also ask, how are you? Are you okay? How's your life going? How do you feel?
At this particular moment, I'm really in a good headspace. I do have my struggles here and there. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I've spoke about this on the show recently and on other platforms actually, that I've been doing a lot of self-searching this year. I had no idea that 2023 was going to be an eye-opener for me, in terms of realizing who's in your corner and who's not, and who you should be careful about bringing into your circle. And a big important lesson that I've learned is you don't have to have a big circle in order to feel like you have family. I've talked on plenty of occasions how in my own personal family, my own internal family, that I have often felt like the black sheep, like I don't belong. And that's why I've always seemed to continue trying to find my tribe, as the kids say nowadays. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I'm just hoping that this time around it's become a little bit more sustainable than before. And like you, I'm also a very big proponent of therapy. I actually just recently, well, not recently, but for some time now, I've been on medication to help out with my struggles of depression and anxiety. But there's also other outlets that I realized that can really be beneficial for you. And it seems like from music not only is your art, but is also a form of therapy for you as well. And podcasting has definitely it's definitely been helpful for me, because before I even got in front of a microphone and a camera, I was an extremely socially awkward person. I was I was always the overthinker that, I would step into a room full of people and I'm worried about, do I look fat in this outfit? Is anybody looking at me? Do I smell okay? Do I look like I have confidence? Do I look like I'm lacking confidence? I'm just putting a spotlight on myself when it's not like, not a single one is laying their eyes on me. It's just me overthinking. And I remember being not made fun of, but being called out by certain family members. Like if I'm at a family function and I'm just not engaged in any conversation, they would be like, "Yo, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? Like, are you okay? Like, you want to talk? Like." But they would do it in a condescending way, like, "Yo, what the hell's wrong with you? Why are you acting all like weird and stuff?" But at this particular moment right now, yes, I am okay. I am good. I do have my moments where I feel like it's a bit of a struggle. Sometimes it's moments where I feel like I don't belong. Sometimes there's moments where I feel like I'm being a nuisance. And I wonder sometimes if I make certain individuals uncomfortable just by just my presence being there alone. It could be a lot of overthinking. I don't know, but I'm trying to work on it. I'm trying to find all these avenues. I'm trying to figure out everything. You know, Steve alluded to earlier. Like we don't know. There's a lot to think about in 2024. There's so much, and it hasn't even begun yet. But
I mean, here we got 2 days left.
excuse me. But to really answer your question, I'm on the same boat as you. I'm good today. I'm good today, and it's moments like this, like what we're doing right now, recording a podcast, that is making it's becoming the highlight of my day. So in this particular point right now, yes, I'm good, and I'm very, very humbled and honored to have you and Steve being part of this moment in this particular time right now.
Steve mental pounded.
Yes. Through the glass. Yeah. But as far like, I love what you said earlier about how you are a proponent of therapy, and as I mentioned before, when we were younger, there was a lot of things that were considered like taboo, and
therapy was one of them.
Yeah, and also therapy was one of them as well. Like I remember that when I was younger, I had to be able to speak to the guy, my counselor, when I was younger, because it was like I couldn't afford therapy at the time. My parents couldn't afford therapy, but they felt like they needed a professional to speak to me, so I would talk to them and, you know, try to figure out my struggles as a kid and so on and so forth. But I was afraid to tell any of my classmates that I was doing that, because they would think that I was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs or something like that. And as I got older, it made me realize that I don't feel comfortable telling anybody that I'm seeking professional help, because they're going to think that I'm a red flag or something's wrong with me, or I might be judged in a certain way that's not right. And I think that we're kind of snapping out of that. It's not where we want it to be, but it's been a long time coming to get to the point that we're at right now. It's just in general.
Oh yeah, man. Therapy was like this big. You got therapy? What's wrong with you? Mm-hmm. Why aren't you like normal like the rest of the kids?
Right.
And once again, much like the Marvel comic books, where we now are on the opposite side. It's like, oh my God, you didn't get your kid therapy? Are you freaking serious? And people get really upset about it. It's because we've gotten to the place where we realize, one, COVID and like taking a step back from society really messed everybody up mentally. One thing I realized, everyone's changed their tone completely. It's been a complete reset almost, where people are now idealizing the ideas that you should be in a mental space where you're helpful and healthy. This also goes along to the idea that this is now promoted to the world, where we're like, hey, now you have to have therapy because of the fact that we know that you're suffering deep inside from not being able to say what you're saying and feel it, and to not be able to say that and have people tell you that you're wrong for feeling it. And now it's a place where you can do that. People are there to support you, and they should, because we're all connected now. We have an internet that allows us to see and talk to each other, to see what we're doing, to catch up with what those people are doing, to see how their family are doing. And a lot of people use that as methods of being able to communicate, to say that, hey, you weren't be able to tell someone that someone close to you recently passed away, and not have someone respond to that immediately from the other side of the internet and give you at least some type of condolences or some sweetness. And I think that a lot of that stuff no one realizes how important that is. Like at the moment, you would be able to feel that and like not have someone there when the internet wasn't the way that it was. But now that it is, you can realize how helpful those tiny moments of therapy and catharsis are helpful to you. And that's super important.
Absolutely. Listen, we're all human, and I've told plenty of times that there are moments where I go through it and I'm in my dark phase, and I always have to figure out a way to how to get out of it, and I have my own means of doing that. When you reach those moments, unfortunately, when it comes to you, because it's just a balance, it's just a part of going with emotions. To help you get out of whatever headspace that you're into that's not being prevalent for yourself, what do you do, or how do you do to get out of it?
Well, that used to be very streamlined. I would use music, and that still very much is a very big proponent of what helps me, like use therapy on self to find self balance. But now, all those years of like getting into fights or getting robbed and stuff like that, and having to defend myself, I've also found that there's a true balance in being able to practice not only martial arts, but like just a general physical aptitude to see that you're physically in a space, and that your body at any moment, once applying physicality and healthy means, can push past that point to a form of health and wellness. And that by itself is just such a rush now to being a specific way into catharsis, that I've been using that specifically along with music. I'll take moments or hours at a time during the day where I work out and I listen to music, and that just moment of like evenness, or sometimes without music, just the quiet of being able to calm one's mind when in a place of dark thoughts or racing, perpetual, just how do I get out of this darkness? Well, I can't do that if I'm sad, and I can't do that if I'm sad because I don't want to do it because I'm sad. Instead, just moving forward and just keeping the pace one foot after another has been super, 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 super helpful in like trying to get out of a specific mindset. So much so that it becomes addictive, because you're so addicted to the idea that you can physically put yourself somewhere else to now, being in that place and then having accomplished something within that time. So that's what I've been using to like help me feel better.
That's good, man, and I'm glad that it's working out for you. And one of the things that I feel like, I feel like there are times where I feel like I speak about this ad nauseum, but my answer to that would be, it's a message that has to keep on being brought out there, because we can't let it get lost in the sauce. And now that mental health talk has become a little bit of a fad, unfortunately, in this day and age, because some people actually treat it like it's a cool thing to be into this whole thing now, and they're using it as a crutch to actually get in with the in crowd or people that they have interest in, or they use it for their own gain, which could be a detriment to somebody else. What I mean by that is, I know maybe a couple of people that they claim that they're all about helping people and their well-being and so on and so forth, but it's only for their own ego. Like an example that I give you is, I have a family member and a friend who, they've always been that like, oh, mental health, that's for sissies and shit like that. But now it's got to the point where like, they only use it as a crutch, in the sense that let's say for example, like you're struggling, and I'm that person that I'm talking about right now, where I'll talk to you, I'll give you the best advice that I can give, and so on and so forth, and then you'll start to feel better about your day, you feel better about yourself, and then you're just gonna go on and do whatever you got to do, and then while you leave, I'm like, there you go, did a great job. That was my good deed for the day. Just make somebody feel better. So that to me is fraudulent. It's fraudulent because you're not doing it for this person that's actually struggling with something. You're doing it just to make yourself feel better about yourself. That's ego. That's narcissism. And I feel like, unfortunately, there's some people out there that just don't understand it, or that's, it affects me personally. It does. But unfortunately, there are people that are like that. And I don't know how we get past that, but I do like to bring out that there are people like that, and you just have to watch out for them.
The idea of visual altruism has become like a real thing, because people put on the internet videos of them helping other people, and that's become
that's a great point. Yeah,
it's a large just pathway for those to whom take those. Some people, there's a lot of people who take the tax, right?
Yeah,
like, I'm going to help you, but now that I've helped you, I've then put myself in a place of higher authority, because I put myself down to put you up, and that just automatically raises me up. That doesn't make any sense.
It's very counterproductive.
It's counterproductive. It just kind of steps on the people below what you've done to help them, to then put yourself higher, which in the long run doesn't really help them. That's the idea, that if you see someone who is asking for money and then you give them $1, but they say that they're going to use the dollar for like liquor or whatever it might be. Not that anyone should feel ashamed for doing anything that they do, but it's that perpetual, like, you do it because of the fact that you know that they're going to do it, but you're doing it because to help them, because you want to feel better about helping them, and not the reason as to why you're helping them.
Yeah.
In judgment, there's anything that you do to help someone else is what you do to help someone else. It's what then you choose to take from that. And if you're choosing to take from that, instead of just like giving and letting it be the way that it is. Yeah, I agree that there are people, and we can all be guilty of it at times where we find ourselves doing things just to help other people, but in regard to then helping ourselves feel better about then helping those people. But I suppose it really comes down to how you choose to then want to continue helping people. If you help someone, that's great. If it makes you feel better, that's even better. But if it makes you feel better to then help someone to feel better about yourself, but then you're not really doing it because you want to see what the reaction of negativity would be from that, is really the horror of it, I suppose. But for me personally, I've realized that if you just take the time to, not everything has to be transactional, but to pay it forward. If someone helps you, to help someone else, and then hope that that person then helps someone else. I don't know if you've ever seen the I Think You Should Leave sketch where this guy's like, I'm gonna pay it forward.
Oh, I think so. I don't think I've seen it, but I heard of it. Yeah.
I just find it also relevant. There's a guy in a drive-through restaurant, and he goes and he orders something. He's like, you know what? Put it on my card. I'm gonna let it for the next person, then I'm gonna pay it forward. And so he wants to start a chain to pay it forward. So after doing that, he then drives immediately around the thing to then get inside the line to then order from the person who's next after him 55 burgers, 55 this
Oh, wow.
to then get from the person to whom is paying the thing forward.
Damn,
that
son.
chain. That's what I think it seems like, how you're explaining people taking advantage of saying good things only to make themselves feel better, but also in the term of them then taking that time, then making someone else feel better to raise themselves up even more. Yeah, I made that person feel good. It was me that did it, blah, blah, blah. I should be the one that takes the blah, blah, blah. And that's just not the same thing as giving someone genuine something and then not expecting anything in return.
Right.
Just because.
Yeah, and another thing that's a hurdle, especially for guys like you and me, is the fact that we are guys, we are men. Mental health has become a big prevalent thing now with everybody, but we still kind of are living in a universe where we're men, we're grown men, we're adults, so we actually should be stronger than we really are. And also due to the fact that we're both minorities. I mean, you're Black, I'm Hispanic, so we naturally come from backgrounds where we're supposed to be mentally tougher than what we really are. And also what I think is was also kind of pretty counterproductive is whenever I would go to therapy, or if I'm talking about my problems on the show or anybody else, I remember when I first started the show, for example, some of the family members were like, well, don't talk about, if you're going to talk about that stuff, great, but don't talk about what goes on in the family. And I'm thinking, well, what if the reason I'm fucked up in the head is because of what happened in my past trauma with the family, So it's counterproductive. And listen, I have to, the kids these days, they want to say, speak your truth. So I guess that's essentially what I'm doing now. I have to speak my truth because, if I'm not going to say it, who's going to listen to it?
That's very true. If I could definitely just layer it on, like, where did your trauma come from? Like, you could totally and not have it like be anything other than that's what it is. I think for me personally, what I learned, instead of like doing that, I'm trying to, very much so, is one thing that I've learned is super hard is taking like accountability can be terribly hard to be like, not terribly hard, but like it can be hard.
It can be difficult. It can be a chore.
For me, it was distinguishing what's my fault opposed to what's other stuff's fault, and I would always just layer it on myself, like it's my, and I still do it now, and I'm still kind of in it now, but you've also got to take responsibility for then knowing that it's not, because that's even harder sometimes to be like, it's my fault, it's just my fault, just you beat yourself up about it. But then what if you stop and you're like, oh well, I have to put this now somewhere else because it actually belongs somewhere else instead of just on yourself. And sometimes family can be like that, where you're not very, hard on yourself so much as realizing that, oh shit, this is something that I should be putting somewhere else, and it comes from family, where you like don't want to mix those two things, because generally in picturesque world where everything's okay, it's not. It's outside, and people are trying to hurt your family, and not the other way around, where it's your family trying to hurt you. it'd be very difficult. And I'm glad that you're okay, at least at this point.
Yes.
And yes, as minority and just, you know, people from, because Jersey often gets a bad rap too. And it's not like, oh, well, you know, you're from California, oh, you must be really cool. It's like, oh, you're from Jersey. And people give you the look. But yeah, being minority, all of those things are just really hard, and they expect you to be super tough. That's another thing that I, you know, drawing stuff and, you know, listening to weird music, comic books, cards, and all that stuff. Well, you were seen as like sensitive, and you were too afraid of the world. That's not true at all. I was constantly fighting the world to try and stay alive. So like for that stuff was like a good piece of armor to help me, like for workout in general. Is like, oh, I watched a ton of anime, and I use that as moments of inspiration for me to meet up to the next point. Now that's cool. Before it wasn't cool. Before I had to like fight just to fucking be able to do it. And, it's you know, you're expected to be someone that you could choose to be, or you could choose not to be that person. From the places that you are then grown in doesn't necessarily have to be the same pot that you continue to grow in. You can just go somewhere else and be something else depending on who you are.
Yeah. What if you learned in 2023 that you want to continue to bring to 2024 and beyond, as far as bettering yourself as a person and as a citizen of the universe?
If it's your fault, it's your fault. Learn to be better if you can, but also learn to understand that not everyone's on your side. There are a ton of different ways for people to not want good for you by making it look like it's good for you. And that's the hardest thing I've ever had to like learn so far, has been like that there are genuine people who care about you and want you to succeed and don't want to hurt you or don't want to do things that make you feel like you need to hurt yourself. But then there are tons of people who will groom you to make sure that you are feeling a certain way so that they can get what they need out of you once you've reached a certain point of, you know, maturity in that phase that they're pushing you through. So there's 2 different to 3 different to millions of different paths that you can take. And one of them that I've realized is more helpful is to do it with a team and or a group of people who actually are good spirited and are in the same mindset to help you move on. And to also realize that there are tons of groups and millions of different paths you can take that will put you in a direction where there aren't people that are looking out for the best of you for you, but will then put that as the, you know, the dinner bell to make sure that you are coming to the right direction. And then there's the path that you decide to take for yourself, and whether or not that's something that goes, there's too many different things to know where things end up. So I learned to just kind of find the path that makes the most of what you have and the people to whom are then looking to help you reach that point.
I love that, man. I love that. Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom. Now, we got a little bit of time left. We were discussing music earlier. I've been thinking about a song that I wanted to close out this episode and this year with, that basically encapsulates everything that has happened to me personally in 2023. And one of my favorite songs ever is Under the Bridge by Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I know that you are fantastic at music. I love seeing you perform. I've seen you perform quite a few times, and you've been exceptional. And I'm proud to know you as a friend and as a colleague. And I would like to ask you if you could do us a favor in covering that song for us to close out this episode and 2023.
Sure. Yeah. Give me 1 second.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, just get yourself ready. So, ladies and gentlemen, coming up next, the smooth sounds of Wyl White performing Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Music up. This is always this is the fun part, because music for me is, again, I'm cathartic, so it's always nice to like do things that are in that mode of catharsis.
Oh, I love that, man.
So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely, man. I think it's a perfect way to close out the year. And yeah.
A brand new year.
Let's do this, yeah. When you're ever ready, take it away, my man.
I got you, fam.
Mm-hmm.
One foot a second. Let me just. Cool. Cool. Sweet. Sometimes I feel like I don't have a partner. Sometimes I feel like my only friend is the city of angels, city I live in. Lonely as I am, together we cry. I drive on her street, 'cause I'm an opinion. I walk through her hills, and knows who I am. She sees my good deeds, she kisses me windy. I never worry, now that is a lie. Well, I don't really wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. I don't really wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. It's hard to believe that I'm all alone. At least I have her love, the city she loves me. It's hard to believe that I'm all alone. At least I have our love, together we cry. Well, I don't really wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. No, I don't really wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. Oh yeah. Oh no, yeah. Under the bridge downtown
Is where I drew some blood. Under the bridge downtown.
never get enough.
Under the bridge downtown.
Forget about my love.
Under the bridge downtown, I gave my life away.
Yeah, oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Beautiful, my man. Beautiful. Thank you so much for that, man. Thank you. I was really looking forward to that. And yeah, what a way to close out the episode, and what a way to close out 2023 at First Class Second Place. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this episode of First Class Second Place. Thank you so much to my guest, Wyl White, for coming through here. Anybody you want to give a shout out to before we close out?
Family. There's a lot of us. Podcast studio, Bravery Studios rocks, bro. Make sure you book yourself a podcast and everything here, Bravery Studios. Mm-hmm. You, my good guy.
Thank you, man.
Ugo, fucking Ash, everybody's that's been here. We've had a good time. Make sure you check out all of the podcasts that are on Bravely TV, Bravely Studios, First Class, Second Place. By all means, do so, and it's gonna be great fun.
All right, and where can they find you on social media?
You can find me under Wyl White, WYLWHIDTE.
All right. Great job, man. Great job, my man. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this episode of First Class Second Place. You can find me at JasonEnrique_ on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Threads, Twix, all the social media platforms. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube at Jason Enrique, and be tuned for more episodes in 2024. Thank you so much for an up and down year of a crazy year, but thank you nonetheless for being part of First Class Second Place in 2023. This is the First Class Second Place podcast. We out.